Hello, hello. It is day 221 of my 365-day raw suspending disbelief journey. Yes, that is a big number jump from the last time. So the next episode that I was supposed to record was day 206. So it has been an extra 15 days. Now, that's obnoxious. That's what I always call everything that is out of line. I there is so much to share about these 2 weeks, but there was no way that I was going to recreate it in daily pieces. And it was actually for the last several days now has become just this monster in my mind that I've been putting off because it has gotten so big, and it just keeps getting bigger the longer I put it off. So here I am. I'm going to try to recap a little bit of what's been going on in the last 15 days. So it has been quite an intense period of time. I believe the last that I left you was I was exhausted from having received the second set of Moonai key rights, and I was I was knocked on my ass by it, and I knew that that was normal, and I was just allowing, and all of that, and that's great. Um, I really was until Thursday, November 14th. I was really exhausted for the entire time, and it took until the 15th, the Friday, which was about 3 days after my Moonai key rights ceremony, that I started feeling my energy pick back up again. But that was also the full moon, and it was the first ceremony that I needed to do after having received the rights, and it just sort of kicked back back up that exhaustion. And it was also leading into, and I mean, the full moon, it's almost become cliche, right? That the full moon is like the crazy time. Everybody goes nuts and kids go crazy and things are difficult, and just all the things, and people go insane and are doing weird things, and all of that, and that's fine. um but it was sort of just the icing on the cake of that whole week of exhaustion. And then the weekend, the 16th and the 17th of November 2024, it was my daughter's birthday weekend, and she had a double sleepover. So the first night she went to someone else's house, and then she had friends here on the Saturday night. Her birthday was Sunday. She turned 14. Oh my gosh, my baby girl can start learning to drive a car. So here in Canada, at least, you can get your learner's license at 14 if you pass your test and all of that. And so she's super excited about that. We spent the day, got her a few things, like went shopping for a few things, got her a second set of piercings for her ears, all of these things. She's growing up so fast. And so it was really just a weekend dedicated to her, and spent on focusing on her. And each day as this was happening, it was just like, I know I need to do my episode, and I'm so tired, and there's just so much going on, and it just kept getting pushed back. And I'll be honest, going into the week of the 18th through the 22nd of November 2024, it was already, my energy was lower. It was still positive. There was nothing wrong. It was all good. But I was more tired than I normally would be. And then all of a sudden at the beginning of the week, I was going into it with this outlook of like, actually the week before had been also fall break. So my kids were home all week. So that added to my exhaustion. But I was looking forward to it. I was like, okay, the kids are gone. They're going back to school. I'm going to be able to get stuff done. I'm going to catch up a little bit on work, all of these things. And I had this like positive mindset. Everything was good. And I apologize, my throat, of course, because I decided I'm finally going to do this episode. My throat started having a tickle. So I'm going to try my best not to be clearing my throat the whole time. But all of a sudden, spiraled down into this super deep depression. And it was so out of the blue. It hit so hard and fast. And um, it, it really, like, it just overtook me mentally. But the strange thing was, I was still functioning at a very high level in my life and in my business. I was still posting, I was still selling, I was still showing up for client calls, I was still doing all of the things. My house was still clean. I was still getting up and getting the kids to school on time. I was still feeding myself. And any time that I've had any level of depression, I don't really feed myself, especially not well, but I was still taking care of myself. I was still maintaining my personal hygiene, which is one of the first things to go um, when uh, at least for most of the ADHD and neurodivergent people that I know, it's one of the first things to go when you sort of hit a depressive streak. And it wasn't gone. Um, I was still, like I said, I was still functioning at a very high level. And it was so strange because it was like I was detached from the situation in a sense. I could look at it and be like, this is weird. This is fucked up. Like, I'm functioning, but I'm so depressed that I want to end things. And I will put a trigger warning on this episode. Um, it was it was an extreme level of depression, much more so than I've experienced in several years. Um, at the same time as all of this, everything else was seeming fine, and I was like going in circles. Like, I know that you can get depressed for no reason. I know that you don't have to have a cause. There doesn't have to be a reason to be depressed. It can just be um, a hormonal imbalance in our bodies. It can be, all kinds of things. So I was giving myself all the grace. I was being patient with myself. I was really, I had all my tools at my disposal and I was using them. And that was the weirdest part, was that I was thinking to use them. I wasn't like, I was in this depression and like wanting to just throw away my business and wanting to like be done with everything with life. And it was just, um, I still was able to be like, yeah, but I have this tool that I can use to keep myself in a better place. Or I have this tool that I can use to make it so that I have the space available to rest extra right now. Or I have my community that I can reach out to and receive support. And I did. And I reached out and received support. I wasn't being helpless. It was such a strange thing to be in this mental space while still functioning. I can't explain the strangeness of it well enough. It's not something I've ever experienced or ever heard of before. So I was very confused. I was very aware of it. It was like eyes wide open. I'm looking at this going, what the hell is happening? And I finally had my accountability coach, Caitlin, reaching out to me going like, hey, what's going on? Are you keeping up on your stuff? She was checking in on me, keeping me accountable. And I just said, you know what? Actually, I'm not. I'm not keeping up. I am keeping up, but I'm not doing well. And she's also the one who I learned working with my hormonal cycles from, or working with my energy cycles. And um, so I rely on her advice, maybe even almost too much. But I reached out because I was like, you know what, you probably have some insight into this more than I do. And I just sort of brought it up to her. I was like, I also feel like I should let somebody know, because the point that I'm at mentally, even though I'm functioning outwardly, the point that I'm at mentally is a scary place. And um, she actually, we kind of chatted back and forth about it a little bit. We hopped on a call, and then she was like, have you ever, she's like, I don't know the correct word for it, maybe necessarily, but have you ever thought about like adrenaline withdrawal? Like, you've been in fight or flight mode for so long, and things are going really good for you right now. And your body and your mind are not used to that. They're used to having to be in fight or flight mode. They're used to having to function with high cortisol and high adrenaline levels. And and as soon as she said it, it resonated as extremely true. I was like, oh my gosh, yes, that makes so much sense. And the more that I looked at it, the more that I thought about it, I was like, oh my goodness. I don't think ever in my life gone through a period this long. And when I say how long, you might laugh, because it's not really that long, but I don't think I've ever gone through a point in my life where I wasn't in fight or flight at all for any reason, um, for a sustained period of time. So my body and my mind literally could not comprehend not having to feel that cortisol, that adrenaline, and that fight or flight mode for that long. And actually had a chemical withdrawal from that and created, um, because there was no problem, my mind tried to create one. And it was just, it blew my mind. It made an instant shift in my mental state, in my mental space of me just, having that awareness to be like, okay, this isn't actually real. This is a construct of my mind because it doesn't know how to function in a good way. It doesn't know how to function without there being a problem. And so, um, it was just another level of this upper limit problem, this whole idea of like not fully believing that we deserve to have everything be this good. And I've been talking about on this podcast, I've been talking about it everywhere, about how good things have been getting. They've been getting so much better. And this suspending disbelief thing has been working so well. And, all of this stuff. And I've even been talking about the upper limit and how we can self-sabotage without realizing it. And I've been noticing the self sabotages and catching them and preventing them and all of these things and doing so, so good with it. And it didn't show up in the same way this time. And so I didn't know what to look for. Right. And um, I got to the point where it was just like, I started looking at it and thinking about that. Like, how long has it actually been? How long has it actually been since I have been in a space of not being in fight or flight mode? And I realized that back in August when I did my offer a day and it was so crazy and all of these things, I was functioning at a really high level. I was like, I was doing really well. Everything was flowing smoothly. I had all kinds of stuff come up. I totally had upper limit stuff come up. I had the whole ClickSlow debacle. I had, they did the bait and switch and they had to switch my website and all of these things, but I was still doing really, really well. I would say probably the last major episode that I had, where there was something really negative that came up was towards the end of June with my ex, my oldest dad, when he stayed with us and sort of there was all of that chaos energy that came in. And then again in August when I had a friend do a 180 and I was emotionally devastated by that. But I held space for myself through that. I got through that in, it was a couple of days of where I just let myself be really sad. And then I moved through it. And it didn't really derail me. The last one that derailed me was towards the end of June. And then I allowed myself all of July to grieve that friendship that I had thought was there. I allowed myself all of that time to get back on the wagon, right? And then basically I was fast paced. Everything was fast paced about what I was doing, but I wasn't struggling. There was no struggle. I was maintaining things at home. Things were busy with work. I had a few times where like the balance tipped a little bit too much one way or something like that, but for the most part, it was really, really good and everything was flowing really, really smoothly. And I had, no major mishaps. But it was, again, I still had there was still the adrenaline things. There was still, maybe I maintained a better balance through it, but I still had big things happening. I had that friend do the 180. I had the ClickSlow event. I had, there was all of these things that happened in August. So August was like maybe a mixed bag. But as of September, I doubled my income in September. I was busy as hell. I had so many calls on my calendar. But again, I was maintaining my life. My life was not falling apart. My life was not getting pushed to the wayside. I was not ignoring my kids. I was not ignoring the cleaning. I was not ignoring cooking, all of these parts that sometimes get pushed to the wayside when we're too focused on business. So it was this like No, I'm just functioning and it's fine. And yes, I'm busy, but I'm not overwhelmed. I'm not in that fight or flight mode. And that was great. I'm like, oh, good. It's great. Yeah, I'm busy, but I'm functioning. Like, no, I don't want to have this many calls on my calendar. Now I have this realization of that, but it was mostly great. October came and went, same thing. It was kind of a blur. Things were crazy, whatever, but nothing was horrible. Nothing horrible has happened. And it's been months, right? So it was literally all of September, October, November, definitely a good chunk of August. Because I said that I wasn't okay. And then I got this clarity. And as soon as I got this clarity, I was like, well, that's ridiculous. And not ridiculous as in I was shaming myself, but it was just like, okay, I can step out of that now, because similar to any upper limit problem, once you realize that it's just an upper limit problem, that it's not reality, you can just step past it. And so I did. However, I still gave myself, I was like, okay, I was really low, and I'm going to give myself a couple of days just to make sure that I recover, that I'm completely out of that before I start expecting more of myself again. And I had booked, I was going to run a master class on the 18th, which was the beginning of this week where I suddenly hit this depression. So I had rescheduled that once, moved it forward to the 25th, which was the following week on Monday. And now we were coming up to the end of, it was like midweek when I had this realization, and I decided I was going to give myself a few days. And then um, I had that same ex who was here in June called. He left his car here since he was gone because he was not able to drive it home at the time. And then it hasn't been running since. So he's needed to come up and do some work on the vehicle to make it so that he could drive it home, take it with him. And he reached out and said, hey, is it okay if me and my dad come up and work on the car, and that way I can get it and have wheels again and all of these things. And I said, no problem. They stayed at a hotel and not at my house, whatever. But he visited, he stopped by, I held my boundaries, everything was fine. I functioned. There was no issues, and it was like right after. So I let myself have the space. I visited a little bit. I didn't allow the energy to get picked up, or linger whatsoever. And I let my body and my mind catch up to my decision. So this was something that never would have occurred to me in the past, to like, okay, I made this decision. Now I'm good to go. And I know that I can just move through it because I've been doing that in all of these situations. Like for the last, we're in the 8th month here, going on the 9th month of this 365-day challenge. And I have decided and moved, on so many things, just completely suspended disbelief about stuff so that I could move forward quickly. And so I knew that that's how I've been functioning and that that's what's been working. And I still was like, for this one, like, I'm gonna give myself so much space because I was really deep and dark and it was nasty for a little bit there. And so I gave myself that space. I pushed back the masterclass a little bit. And although I was in this much, much better frame of mind mentally, I was still physically exhausted. And I think just sort of the combination of all of the things, the kids having a week off of school, that energetic week because of the Moon Nike stuff, and then the depression week, and then just like all of these things, it just lent itself to like me just needing to rest, just needing to just not expect a lot of myself and have that be okay. And so I did. And then building up into the rest of the week. I mean, we're coming up, today is Black Friday. And Black Friday is like the biggest sales day of the year, right? For anyone who's in business at all, whether it's entrepreneurial or otherwise, Black Friday is like your biggest sales day of the year. This is not a day you want to miss. This is not a day you want to skip over. This is, all of this stuff. Now, I didn't have pretty much anything prepared because it was basically 3 solid weeks of, or almost 3 solid weeks of me not really being, not choosing my business. Not that I couldn't, and I did do a little bit as far as business went, but I didn't force myself through it, right? I just sort of let it be what it was. And so the rest of this week was sort of a rush to get prepared for Black Friday. And also in my recovery zone where I rescheduled my masterclass again, I accidentally, I didn't intentionally do it, but I accidentally rescheduled it for Black Friday. So I ran it today. I did do the masterclass. I delivered on it. It's done. But actually, not very many people made it live because it was Black Friday. And most of the people that I talk to are entrepreneurs and they're very, very busy. So that wasn't ideal, but it's done. It's recorded, and that is now available for anyone who is interested in that. It's the Wild Feminine Success Blueprint Masterclass. It is talking about all the pieces that you need to reach true success, not just wealth, but true success, where you have that balance, where you have, and this is what I've been dealing with. So I want to help you achieve that balance, but I also want to help you to know that it's okay if you hit a level where your mind goes, this is not safe. It is not safe to be this okay. And everything is, it can't possibly be this good. And we're going to struggle now. And, to give yourself that grace, to have a community that you reach out to, and then to allow it to just be let go of when you realize that it doesn't have to be something that's real. And, such a strange scenario. And obviously, like, I'm laughing at it now. In the moment, it was like, this is very stressful and what is going on? But I'm also really looking forward to, just now that I've realized, okay, my life now is one of peace, is one of balance, is one of functionality, and not one of struggle and pain and suffering and difficulty and fear and running and, all of these things. And so I am now moving into a phase of my life where, and I've been experiencing it for a few months, but I didn't really fully understand what I was experiencing. So now I'm moving into a phase of life where I'm looking at it eyes wide open, going, this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like to have this success. This is what it looks like to not be in fight or flight. This is what it feels like not to be filled with adrenaline and cortisol and fear all the time. And what an amazing thing. What an amazing thing. Like, I want to celebrate that, even though it threw me into that depression. So, I'm really grateful to be where I'm at right now. And that is like a very high level overview of 15 days worth of what I could have been sharing on this podcast. But I feel like maybe there was, good enough reason to be tied up in what I was doing on all of those days. And then, as we got into this week, I was building up to Black Friday and also going like, oh my gosh, I have so many days to try to catch up on for that. And even deciding that I was going to do it all as one episode, I still was just like, oh, I don't know if I can remember all the pieces, and it's a big thing to share and, all of that. So it was daunting a little bit, and it needed to get to a point where um, you know, I was ready to just talk about it all. I had thought about it all enough. I had figured it all out in my head. And sometimes I can just talk through it and figure it out as I talk through it on a daily basis. But when it comes to like almost 3 weeks, or at least just over 2 weeks of me not digging into it, reflecting on it verbally like this, it is different. Like I was reflecting on my days. I was, like I said, I was eyes wide open the whole time, even during that depression feeling. I was like, I'm reflecting on it. I'm paying attention to it. I'm looking at it. I'm wondering what's going on. I'm asking the questions. I'm digging in. um, but it just became for a little bit too much for me to try and do it in a podcast format, try and record myself talking about it. And there were definitely a couple of days where there was just no way I was not going to speak those thoughts that I was having into a podcast format. So, and then it's just sort of been recovery. So I'm doing great now, and in all reality, I was doing great that whole time. But I did have sort of like this dip where it was just like, help. I don't understand what's happening. And I think it's really important to share, though. I think it's really important to share because I think especially the reason behind it being that I was doing so well in life that my mind decided that it had to sabotage me. So if you are suspending disbelief and you are getting to the point where like you've been suspending disbelief so much and everything is going really good in your life, and then you hit a point where you're like, everything's still fine, why am I miserable? Now you've had this knowledge, you've heard this story, because it's not something I had ever heard of before, and so it was really hard for me to identify um, and understand where it was coming from. So hopefully this is helpful for somebody. Hopefully it helps you to get over that hump of that upper limit of not believing that you deserve, or of not knowing what it can even be like to just be in that sort of happy, peaceful, quiet, calm, everything is okay state of life. And that is, it is really a beautiful place to be. And I'm really grateful that I'm at this place, and and it has nothing to do with my life being perfect. My life isn't perfect, but it's so much better, and I'm not in fight or flight anymore. And that is worth everything. That is worth absolutely everything. So I could not be happier with the trajectory that I'm on with this suspending disbelief challenge, with the trajectory that I'm on in life, in business, any of it. It is all just amazing, and I'm going to do my damned best to show up tomorrow and do an episode and get myself back in the habit, because a couple weeks, oh man, it was bad when I hit that like week or 10 days before, and that I've hit this again is frustrating to me because it got difficult to get caught up again after I did that. So I'm gonna try really hard. They may be inconsistent. They won't be this long apart like they were the last, that this time and that last time. Um, but I am still here. I am still doing this. I am not giving up. I have not stopped, and I have not forgotten about it either. Even though I went that many days, I have not forgotten. It was just every day sort of going like, I'm not up to this yet. But I am now, and I'm going to continue to be to the best of my ability. So thank you for listening. Thank you for suspending disbelief with me. I hope that was helpful for you today, and I will talk to you all tomorrow.